But yesterday, we learned in this speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1991 about how incredibly close this future redemption is. And even though it seems exactly the opposite, and it's even hard to even imagine how, not imagine how it's going to happen, how anybody could really believe that the thing like this is going to happen. And especially an intelligent person like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's a very intelligent person. He's very, very down to earth, very knowledgeable in human nature and what's modern, what does it say, the news and what's going on in the world. And he really believes that Mashiach is going to transform the whole entire world like that. In one instant, that everyone is going to recognize God. All the third temple will be built. The Jewish people will all come to their senses and come to the land of Israel. And it can happen just in a couple of minutes. No, to say that a thing is like that is going to happen, who says, but to see somebody who really actually believes this 100%, this is very, very strange. And the Rebbe wants us to believe it. And the Rebbe is convincing us that why he's so certain and why we should be so certain. Until the fact that we actually can start being certain. We start realizing, hey, this is not just a dream. This is not just a plan. This is actually God's will, if you want to call it. This is the way things really are. This is the way things really are. The way things really are, and even more, it's just totally incomprehensible why we don't see this. Why is there all this confusion in the world? That's what should wonder us. That's what should amaze us. How can it be that God is not revealed everywhere in the world? How can it be that there's no third temple? How can there be such a thing? It just doesn't make any sense. Some of you read sometimes in the stories about parents or children that a loved one goes into a coma and they don't give up. They don't give up. Goes into a coma a day, a week, a month, a year, goes in 2 years, and everybody starts thinking, okay, that's it. Just pull the plug. It's not going to get better. Just not going to get better. And the people who really love him say, listen, I can't understand why he just doesn't get up. Why he's not just healthy. And a lot of doctors say, listen, stop living in this, dream world. He's just not going to give up. Look there's a whole room full of people that are in comas for 20 years, 50 years. That's it. A coma. But they look and they say, no, this can't be. The coma is the unnatural thing. It has to stop at any second. That's not, you can't take this for granted, the coma. What you have to take for granted is that any second is going to come to. And sure enough, it happens, right? They come back. Where am I? What happened? True, it's very rare, but it does happen, right? Against all the doctors' prognosis and etc. Well, the Rebbe is trying to tell us, listen, I'm an expert doctor, and I'm telling you, it's going to happen 100%. The situation we are in now for the last 2,000 years is abnormal. It's not supposed to be this way. It's like a bad dream. Any second, everybody's going to, and I'll show you there's hints. God is sending us certain hints. One of them is Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbat. Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbat. And this Shabbat, at Mincha time, we read from the Torah, Et Hanan, the story of how Moses prayed 515 prayers to come into the land of Israel. Those prayers are helping us. You can say, hey, one minute. It's exactly the opposite. Moses prayed 550 prayers to get into Israel, and he didn't get in. He didn't get in. So the Rebbe says, no. The explanation for this is it's obvious that the prayers of Moses, they are powerful and they will be answered without any doubt. How much more so from every tzaddik right now? How many people do you know? Stories, you could tell stories. There's a fellow, what was his name? Eliyahu Tauger. He wrote a collection of stories of how the Rebbe, there must be 100 stories, 150, I don't know. of how the Rebbe saved people. But he wanted to be very accurate. So he's not like me. I add on all sorts of details that never even happened. And people were crying and they were waiting and they were this. He just says exactly the facts which are known, right? So eventually the story is, the person is sick, he has a big growth, and he goes to the Rebbe, and the doctor says he's going to die in a couple of days, and the Rebbe says it's going to be okay, and he gets healed. This person, his heart doesn't work, and he has to have a transplant, and the Rebbe goes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, I don't see that you have to have a transplant, don't make the operation. And the doctors, all of a sudden, it gets better, and the doctors, this girl is crippled, and he goes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says this, and eventually the stories become sort of boring because you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. The person goes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gives a blessing, and everything comes out okay. A person doesn't have any money, and all of a sudden the Rebbe gives him a blessing, and he meets somebody, gets money. So one story after the other, everything gets churned out. That's the Rebbe. If you read 2 stories, 3 stories, very interesting. But after 100 stories, it's like the prayers of tzaddikim of the Rebbe. When the Rebbe gave a promise that something would be, it was always came to be. How much more so the prayers of Moses? He's like the ultimate level of the tzaddik, right? He had the whole Jewish people, took them out of Egypt. He prayed 515 prayers for himself, a good thing. They should just go into the land of Israel. Allah has come, how much more so the prayers of Moses, that even it says that what Moses made with his hands, the tabernacle that Moses made, it's eternal. How much more so his prayers when he prayed to God? They should be answered. So these 515 prayers of Moses are standing there and they're helping us. And especially that Moses prayed all of these prayers, right? It just wasn't just one prayer. If we had the merit, so the prayers of Moses would have had fruition in their time. He would bring the Jewish people into the land of Israel. And Moses would have built the holy temple. And then there would have been an eternal temple and a true eternal redemption. We did this yesterday, but we're just going over it. But for all sorts of side reasons why, as back then Moses in its time wasn't answered the prayers of Moses. Why? Because there was a decree that Moses had to stay with the people in the desert, etc. We're going to learn that. But whatever side reasons was that God decided not to let Moses into Israel, so temporarily back then he didn't answer the prayers of Aliyota Tefillah Shel Moses, but because of the prayers of Moses, and there were 515 prayers of Moses. So for sure those prayers are going to be answered. But they'll be answered when God wants. They'll be answered later. And when will they be answered? Now, says the Rebbe, in the future, in the Gula Amitit V'Shleima, and the true, complete redemption by means of the Mashiach. Mashiach is the first redeemer. He'll be the last redeemer. He is going to bring all the Jewish people into the land of Israel. Mashiach, with the help of these 515 prayers of Moses, and a redemption that there's not after any exile. And there'll be a building, the third temple. So what's the Rebbe saying? Moses, his prayers weren't answered for some unexplainable reason, but we've been waiting for 3,300 years almost for Moses' prayers to be answered. So if so, it's a thing that it just has to happen any second. Don't say, listen, if it hasn't been answered up to now, it's not going to happen at all. No, exactly the opposite. If it hasn't been answered yet, Moses' prayers haven't been answered yesterday, for sure it's going to be answered today. It's just what? Ella la'achrei zaman. It'll be answered after the time Moses asked. When comes the future redemption? So all these prayers are waiting. It's merits for us. Even if we don't pray for the redemption, we have all these prayers of Moses. Moses, he's the first redeemer. He'll be the last redeemer. He'll bring all the Jews to the land of Israel. Someone asked him, the redeemer, this has to be from the tribe of King David. And Moses, he was from the tribe of Levi. How can it be? So it's explained that there'll be a spark of the soul of Moshe, in the Mashiach. They'll be together. And also it says Moshe, the main thing of Moshe was that he taught Torah. And the main thing of David is he was a king. So Mashiach is going to be both things. He's going to teach everybody Torah, even the deepest ideas of the Torah. And he's also going to be a king over the world. Torah is what you can sort of understand. And being a king, you can't understand the king. King tells you to do things that are against your understanding. Okay, this has to happen right now, says the Rebbe. The Rebbe is trying to put us in the proper perspective. We have to look forward any instant and understand that the future is incredibly brighter than we can possibly imagine. According to this, we can understand the eternal teaching for this in all the generations. Moses began to feel, okay, listen, we can't say, listen, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that Jews have been saying this like for the last 2,000 years, and they've been terribly disappointed. We can't ignore that fact. And things seem to be getting worse and worse, right? When the temple was destroyed, nobody took pictures. Here we have the Holocaust. There was movies, pictures, right? Everybody saw the piles of bodies over there, the terrible things that were happening. So a person can say, let's just give up on this whole business and forget it. Good. Says the Rebbe, that's part of the exile. Part of the exile is to be, how do you say, what's the word for it? Disenthused. I can't think of the proper word. To lose your enthusiasm, to lose hope, to lose the dream. So that's part of the exile. Part of the exile is, forget it. We're just people like everybody else. God has left us, right? That's the exile. God has left us. God has left the Jews, right? We have to make an alternative plan because it's just not going to happen, right? That Christianity is based on that terrible, evil, destructive idea. God has left the Jews. You have to have another alternative. That's it. The whole thing is finished. You can see, look at all the bad things all the prophets say, and God gets mad at the Jews. Yeah, but look at all the good things the prophets say. And look how it always ends with something positive. And look at the 515 prayers of Moses. And look at what the Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying. And just look at the fact that we haven't left our Jewish identity. Look at the hints, the fact that Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbat. And there's actually Jews that keep Shabbat. There's a famous story. I don't know if it's even true, but they say that the story is that Napoleon, he conquered Israel. He conquered the whole, whatever it is, and then he came to Akko, a whole big story. Then there was a plague, some of his soldiers got sick. Anyway, he made it to Israel, and he was there in Tisha B'Av. You can look up according to the dates, if this is true, the story. But the story, that they tell the story, that's 100% that they tell the story. If the story is true, I don't know it's true, but it's true that they tell it. That he came and he went to the Jerusalem, to the Kotel, whatever it was, and he saw Jews there praying, wailing, or he went by synagogues. The Jews were praying. So he asked one of his helpers, what are they praying about? What are they crying about? So he said, they're crying about the destruction of the temple. They had a temple, holy temple, that was destroyed. He said, what? The holy temple was destroyed? One second, that happened like a few thousand years ago, didn't it? It happened like, over 1,500 years ago it happened. And they said, yeah, the Jewish people. He said, listen, if these people are still crying, they're actually crying, and they're mourning over a building, their building that was destroyed 1,000 years ago. How are we going to conquer these people? Right? These people, nothing is going to shake their identity. Because a big thing about Napoleon was that he wanted the Jews to stop being Jews. He wanted them to be Frenchmen. I don't know if you know it, but Napoleon, he wanted that there should be the state of Israel. He wanted it to be Medinat Israel. He really did. He wanted to move all the Jews to Israel. It was a plan, but it would be a secular Israel. He would be very happy with what's going on here. Now, I mean, until he sees what Chabad is doing, he would be happy. But it would be, and that's why the big enemy of Chabad was France. France, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he favored the Tsar. He actually sent spies to spy on Napoleon. Napoleon thought that all the Jews loved him, and they did all love him, except for Chabad. All of the Jews loved him. All the Jewish leaders loved Napoleon because Napoleon was giving freedom to everybody and freeing them from the oppression of the church and freeing them of this. And everybody was for him, except for the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe said, as bad as the church is, Napoleon is much worse. Because Napoleon wanted to take away Jewish identity. That was his whole thing. And Napoleon himself said, if Jews, they can still observe Tisha B'Av after so many times, how am I going to get rid of this identity? They got something much deeper than me, right? I'm going to convince them for freedom is the answer. Brotherhood, equality. Says that, and so this is what we can learn from now for all the generations. Moses began his prayer by saying, you began to show your servant. God took Moses and said, look at the land of Israel. This is the land that everyone's going to. Moses said, please, God, let me go there. Let me go there. Come on, 515 prayers he prayed. Right? Each prayer was different. Patach, he began and he said, Moses started to pray. In other words, even though that Moses said, I know that you decreed on me that I'm not going to go into the land of Israel, but I learned from you, God. Shamarta li, you said, that you said when the Jewish people were worshiping the golden calf, so Moses said, remember, God, you told me, stand aside and I'll wipe out all the Jews. Well, I was stopping you, God. Ela liftoach petach, you opened up a door. Shebe haya talui, that in me was depending the whole thing. The Jews were worshiping the golden calf. God said to me, stand aside, hanichali. God said, leave me alone. I'm going to destroy the Jews. I understood, oh, what do you mean leave me alone? That I can change God's opinion. Also, I would think, maybe now I can change your opinion. Right? You say I'm not going to go to the land of Israel. Maybe I worked by the golden calf. I prayed to you and you said, okay, 100%, I'll let the Jews live. You gave me the 13 attributes of mercy. Now maybe the same thing. Maybe I'll change your mind now. No one's going to stop you, God. You can change your mind, right? Your wife is not going to say, what are you doing? Changing your mind again, right? You're wishy-washy. Your mother is going to say, come on, God, you're not going to be successful if you act like this. You got to be, be strong in your opinion. No one's going to stop you, God. You're alone, right? You're alone. Do me a favor, God. Let me come to the land of Israel. Because Moses wanted to come to the land of Israel, namely what? He wanted to bring the future redemption. He wanted to come to Israel because he wanted that would be the future redemption. He'd be with all the Jews. They would build the temple. It would be eternal. The Jews would never turn away from God. It would be a true redemption for all the Jewish people. So Agam, even though that Moses knew that there was a decree that he wasn't going to go in, but Moses did everything that he could do. He prayed, and he prayed another time, and he prayed a third time, until he prayed 515 prayers. Or maybe he said maybe just prayed one prayer that went into 15 times 500, right? 15 times 500, 500 different levels of level of Hishtalshalut, and with different opinions about between one level and one level of the worlds, the upper level of the worlds, etc., and the earth. Maybe it'll cause God to negate his decree, and he'll come to the land of Israel. And even more, even after God said, Al tosev davar alaya ba'od davar hazeh, that God said, we'll see, this is going to next week's Torah portion. God said, don't continue praying anymore. Stop it. Hari, Safek Gadol, there's a big doubt if God, if Moshe really stopped or not. We don't know at what point God told Moses, stopped praying, I'm not going to let you in. If he said that after the first prayer, or after the 10th prayer, after the 500th prayer, the 514th prayer, and Moses still continued praying. Because there's a principle, you have to do everything. If you're a guest by somebody's house, you have to do everything that they say, except leave. You don't have to leave. If the owner of the house says, be quiet, sit in the corner, do the dishes, right, work on the garden, you have to do it. You're the guest. Work on the garden, you have to do it. But if the owner of the house says, get out, you don't have to do it. You have to say, listen, I'll sit in the backyard, I'll keep quiet, whatever, but you can't kick me out. That's what it says. You don't have to do it. If so, that's a law. If so, it's the same thing over here. If so, Moses said, listen, whatever you want me to do, God, I'll do, but you can't kick me out. Even if the Bible, namely God, commands Moshe to leave, Al Tosef, to stop talking, Moses, stop praying, right? You're out of the land of Israel. I'm not letting you in. Mr. Lomer, it's logical to say that Moses Nevertheless, he was willing to sacrifice even his life, and he continued to request and to pray, God, don't kick me out. Let me in the land of Israel. And together with this, that it wouldn't, especially because he knew that it wasn't going to hurt another Jew. Yoshua bin Nun, God already decided that Yoshua, he would bring the Jews into the land of Israel. Even if it was the hand of Moses. That Moses, by means of his prayer, he could come to the land of Israel, and certainly Moses could have done this, right? Like we said before, but because Moses was a shepherd of the Jewish people, he was a true shepherd, and he was a true Rebbe, and he cared about every Jew, and he taught the Torah to the Jewish people in a true way. As Einu Yotzim Galus Hashiru Sham et Talmidav, he didn't want to go out of the exile and leave in the exile any of his pupils. It says that there's a law that if a pupil that goes into exile, we learned about the Iri Miklat, remember last week, the cities of refuge? So it says that if he goes into exile, it says that his teacher has to go into exile with him. In the days of the future redemption, Shleimus Agula, the complete redemption of Moses, was not just that he alone would go in, but Yachad Ito, he would unite with all of his pupils. How much more so that a Rav, if he's put into exile, all of his pupils are with him. So it's understood that the prayers of Moses to come into the land of Israel, he wanted that all of the Jews in his generation, even the Jews that died in the desert, would all go with him into the land of Israel within the complete redemption. And so it'll be. And for this, we can also learn from our generation now regarding to the representative, the branch of Moses, which is in every generation. Okay, the Jewish people, what do we say? They have Jewish identity, they never leave it, but they always have to have a proper Jewish leader that at least holds up the flag and says, okay, everybody, this is real Judaism, this is what true Judaism is. At least there has to be one person like that. There has to be one Moses in every generation. And until the Moses in his generation, what's the Moses in our generation? The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe always said about himself that he was just an extension of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Alder says similarly regarding to Moses, which is in every single Jew. Notwithstanding all the prayers and all the requests the Jews have been making for the last 2,000 years at least to now, but also we have to request again, and we have to request again, and we have to say, how long can it be? So exactly the opposite, says the Rebbe. From Moses, the fact that Moses prayed 515 prayers and he wasn't answered, that should encourage us. If Moses, after 100 prayers, he didn't stop, and after 200 unanswered prayers, he didn't stop, and after 300, 400, 500 unanswered prayers, Moses did not stop, so how much more so we shouldn't stop? It's clear, Shahatfila, that the prayers and the requests will be answered, and they'll be answered immediately. And an often that's going to be in matanat chinam. They'll be answered in a way we can't possibly imagine what it's going to be. Ein chanun, it says et chanan. That's next week's Torah portion. Give me a free gift, God. Et chanan. Moses didn't say, let me in because I'm righteous, because I'm this. Moses prayed 515 reasons why God should let him into the land of Israel, even though he doesn't deserve it. Ein chinun b'kol makom eloshen matnat chinam. Even though we don't deserve it, God. And the fact is we do deserve it. But forget about any merits that we've got. It could be maybe the sins of the Jewish people that wipe out all their merits. Let's say. Doesn't make any difference. If we have no merits, all we have is negative things. Nevertheless, God give us a free gift. That's what Moses prayed for. And that's what's going to be accomplished. Shalo be'erich, and the reward that we're going to get is lo be'erich la'avoda. It is incomparable. The reward is incomparable to the service that we serve God. I mean, do you realize how many Jews how many thousands, maybe millions of Jews in the course of history died because they gave their lives for God alone. Nobody even knows where they're buried. No one witnessed their tremendous courage and their defiance. Nobody worshipped saw their heroism. It's not written anywhere. Just between them and God. Them and God. Incredible self-sacrifice. People saw their children get killed, their wives, all because of Judaism, just because they're Jews. How much merits the Jews have because of this. But nevertheless, a Jew can say, listen, God, okay, maybe one person did a sin, and that sin wipes out all who knows how God reckons everything. But God, you never change. You are merciful. You love the Jewish people. We said the mountains will move, but your love for us will never move. Give us a free gift. And the gift that we're going to get is lo be'erich la'avoda. It's incomparable to the service. Listen, the fact is now in this world, we don't even know what good is. We don't know what good is. What's the greatest good you could possibly imagine? Think about it a second. What's the greatest good, right? You can have pleasure from your children. You can be healthy. It's a wonderful thing, right, to be healthy. That you shouldn't have any disappointments in life. Nobody you know should suffer, right? There shouldn't be any suffering in the world. That's the best we can do, right? There shouldn't be any famine. But that's not really good. That's just taking away the bad. What is good? Basically, we really don't know. We don't know really what good is. We know what things that are feeling good. We know things that trick us, right? Taking drugs, you feel good. You win a lot of money, you feel good. You do this, the pleasures, physical pleasures, that's good. Right? Truly good things. Like I say, you get pleasure from your family. You see your children growing up. You have a loving wife, a loving this. That's good, but that's not really. That's sort of weak in the world. To be honest, huh? That really people get pleasure out of being honest. So in the future we're going to realize a type of good, a type of wholesomeness and love and honesty and truth that we never imagined. There's no explanation for this. No one has experienced it. It's going to be lo be'erich. The only thing they can think about in this world is there's the religions that promise you're going to go to heaven. Oh, heaven, there's going to be pleasure. Then you're going to know. Now, there's a certain degree of truth to that. But the fact is that in this world is revealed even an incredibly higher level. Shelo be'erich, incomparable to anything that we've done in this world. This will be the future redemption by means of the Mashiach. That's going to benefit the whole entire world. Goel Rishon, the first redeemer, Moses, he brought the idea of redemption into the world. And the Goel Achron will be the Mashiach ben David, and all of the Jewish people will all go to the land of Israel, and a Geula Nitzchis, and an eternal redemption. And the whole third temple will come down from heaven. The third temple, an eternal temple that will stand and build, and it's standing and it's already built above Lamaila, above. This is a Tosfot, whatever it is in the Talmud. It's written also in Kabbalah that the third temple it's in heaven and it's there and it's physical. We just don't know what physical means. We don't know what truth is, and it'll come and it'll be revealed in this world. The whole world will be with the Mashiach, the Rebbe, right now. Mamash. Now let's learn Dvar Malchut. Nevertheless, the Rebbe is trying to awaken us a little bit to what's really going on and what's going to really be revealed and what we should be expecting any instant now. This should fire us up that we want to do more. We want to teach Torah to more people. We want to put tefillin on more people, put a mezuzah on somebody's door. Do anything we can to make it manifested in the world. Let's do Hayom Yom. As they call it, Shtut de Kedusha. Crazy holiness. The first Rebbe of Chabad, when he came back from the city called Peterburg, he said a mimer. And the mimer, the Hasidic discourse, and it had only a few lines. What was it? Se'u yedechem kodesh uvarachu et Hashem. Yivarechecha Hashem mitzion, ose shamayim va'oretz. That's the raise your hands in holiness and bless God. That's God's name. God will bless you from Zion, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Raise your hands in holiness. This means you have to raise up your emotions, your hands, right and left, that refers to love and fear. Lift up your life, your emotion, lift them up to your intellect and the illumination of your emotive traits by the intellect. And what does it mean? Think about God, realize how good God is, and then put your emotions in the, in the possession of your intellect, so that your emotions don't carry you away. Before you do anything, you think, is this really what God wants? Is this what it says in the Shulchan Aruch? Right? Your mind rules over. That's what it means, raising up your arms to your head, so that your head rules over your emotions. And bless God. When you do this, which is against nature, that you really, everything, your emotions are really controlled by your understanding and your faith and your connection to God. Your emotions are controlled by your intellect. Then God reacts. This elicits the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. And then what? God will bless you and be drawn from the essence of your soul. And this will make the heavens and the earth. This will maintain the heavens and the earth. In other words, if we control ourselves and fix ourselves, then God will fix the world. Have a good day with Moshiach Now. God willing, at 3 o'clock, we're learning Chumash. Hope to see you then.